good, champs? Welcome back to another episode of the Book Review Show. I'm your host, Glenn, aka Maurice, and I'm excited for the book I got today. And more so than excited, I'm actually looking forward to giving this book. This is probably one of the most important books, just because of times that I could give you. And but before we get into that, I just want to thank everybody that's tuning in, giving me their ear or their eye. So whether you're watching the visual or you're listening in audio, I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody that has been tuning in since the first one. And even I just want to thank the ones who just now tuning in, and this is the first time they're hearing me give a book review. Because ultimately everything's about the book, not me. So I just want to thank y'all for tuning in and receiving the knowledge and my opinion. And now for those who have been tapped in, been tuning in to the book since I started, I haven't posted one in a few weeks, and I just kind of took this time since everything started globally with the whole pandemic and corona situation. Give myself time to kind of reflect on some things because we're in strange times, and I just want to get this message off, so just bear with me. But yeah, times are definitely strange right now, much different than ever. And unless you're around or not around, unless you know someone that was around back in 1918, around that time when the Spanish flu was taking people out, millions of people across the world, then you really haven't experienced nothing like this. And it's crazy to say because in these last 4 years, just these last 4 years, we've experienced so much. And in my 26 years of living, we've experienced so much, and nothing was like this. Nothing. So yeah, times are much stranger, man. So many people without stuff, so many people in positions that they've never been in. And so I say that with the whole virus situation, it is more important than ever right now that we are taking in and receiving sound, objective, not emotional or biased, well and thorough research information about anything health or disease related, because we're receiving so much information about everything that it can just kind of put you in a place where you don't care, or you're taking in wrong information, yada, yada, yada. It just can put you in a place that you don't want to be and that you shouldn't be. It's like it's like you coming back to school from, whatever the case may be, from, anything, and then something happened at school and now everything's changed at school. And so then, like, your best friends, when you get there, they telling you one thing, and then, the kids, in the other class telling you another, and you just like, you don't know what to take in because you're like, wow, everything's changed, teachers acting different. You can't do certain stuff, and and that's just how it is right now. But I say that because although times are different right now and are difficult, it's a great time right now for all of us to reclaim our health, our wealth, and our homes. And so with that I mean like ourselves, our families, and everything that consists of, the umbrella of a home, because we have this quality time to sit down, reflect, and kind of refresh our minds and recalculate and recalibrate. So yeah, man, it's so important right now that we taking advantage of this time and elevating ourselves. And I preface that, say that all to preface. That's why I got this book today. I'm giving you guys the China study. And this book it's just important, to me, and I feel it should be, important to you guys, just because it's a life changer. For me personally, it was a life changer because, just being someone who, first off, I'm a fatty. I'm a foodie. I love food. my family, if you know me, if you've been around, they call me Fatty. Just because I love food, but I always been curious. Um, I really just always been curious about the relationship between food and like performance and just longevity. I've always been that, and then you also know that is what I study now. I'm actually a sports nutritionist, and so I just been like super curious about how it all plays in our life, and having people too recently and just in my whole life, that have died because of health related issues. For those who don't know, not your homies in the hood, not the coronavirus, not whatever you think it is the number one killer. The number one killer in America is heart disease, and heart related issues. That's the number one killer in America, and so um, yeah, after reading this book, um, and many others, this is not the only book, but after reading this book particular, it was everything I needed, especially at the time I received it. Just because how informative it is. Sorry, and the scientific research presented in it. But overall, having a simple message and solutions. It's just another book that had me like, wow. I was just like, wow. It's another book that I feel like will have you like, wow. And I try not to oversimplify, saying that it's simple and it has a simple solution, but I can't express how simple it is after you're presented all the research and evidence of what's given in the book. Now, before I go into the book, as always, I want to give a little bit about the authors, T. Colin Campbell and his son Thomas Campbell. T. Colin Campbell, you've probably seen him on any of the health documentaries that have been coming out. He's one of the few doctors that have been around and been pushing for better health and bringing the topic of better nutrition to the forefront. He's a husband, father, son, professor. He's an author. He has his own nonprofit. Back in the day, he worked for the U.S. State Department on a project in the Philippines. He was a part of the World Cancer Research Fund. I believe he still is. And yeah, I mean, he's just part of so many things. He co-directed the survey and research for the China study, the book. So he was a part of it. Yeah, and then his son, Thomas, he's the co-founder and clinical director of the University of Rochester Program for Nutrition and Medicine, and he's an educator at his father's nonprofit Center for Nutrition. And he has another book too, a newer one. It's called the Campbell Plan Solution. Yeah. And that's a little bit about the authors. So the basis of the book or purpose is to give you, the reader, a new framework for understanding nutrition and health, a framework that eliminates confusion, presents and treats disease, and allows you to live a more fulfilling life by presenting the scientific evidence in a form that can be understood in the clearest way possible from his many observations, researches, and human studies. And there's a quote that I like that sums up the basis of the book. If you're only interested in a 2-week menu plan to lose weight, then this book isn't for you. He says, I'm appealing to your intelligence, not to your ability to follow a recipe or menu plan. I want to offer you a more profound and more beneficial way to view health. And now, like I said before, anytime anyone tells me that something ain't for me, I'm like, all right, bet, unless it's really not for me, then then I'm like, okay. But the way he presented it, I was just like, all right, bet, then I'm gonna finish this, because he basically said like, I'm trying to give you something real, and I love that, and he does. So yeah, that is the basic purpose of the book. So now let's get into a little bit of these highlights. Now, before we get into the highlights, I just want to say the whole book is a highlight itself because he breaks down with everything. He breaks down the tables, the charts, the pictures, and just how much detail he goes into. The whole thing is a highlight, and that's how I treated it. If you see my book, it's like a coloring book. Yeah. So I just want to say that first. With these informative books, they just always, the whole thing is a highlight. But with that being said, the book is broken up into 4 parts. And it's the China study, disease of influence, the good nutrition guide, and why haven't you heard this before section. And pretty much, I'm gonna just give y'all 4 highlights and just give you a highlight of like a takeaway from each section. Instead of just trying to go into a whole bunch of highlights, I'm gonna just give you like a takeaway from each section that I took away, like a major one. So yeah, first one is right into the meat and potatoes of it. I know we all wondering, like, all right, bro, what is the China study? And he goes right into it. Yeah, so what is the China study? It was a study pioneered by Colin Campbell and some of his other colleagues, a director deputy of China's premier health research lab, and some other people in China that helped fund it and was a part of it. It was a study done in 65 different Chinese counties and later included 4 mainland Chinese areas and 16 counties in Taiwan to find and investigate the associations and causations and correlations between lifestyle, diet, and diseases such as cancer, focusing on areas where people lived the same and ate the same to get as many dietary and lifestyle variables, which produce higher quality and comprehensive data. Where they then were able to, in a way, compare these findings with research findings on Western diet and disease causation and correlation, which made it and make it so important because often research and on Western diets or in in the Western society, it's the same. It's like it's one type of diet, which is typically the meat eating diet, and then in like low fiber, high fat, and versus in China, it's mostly like a plant based high fiber diet, and so then they're able to not necessarily compare, but they're able to put them side by side and do comparisons in that way. So yeah, and then there's a quote on page 75 that I really liked and took away, and it says, "I have never pursued health hoping for immortality. Good health is about being able to fully enjoy the time we do have." And I really like that because often, and then like maybe if you're watching this, you might feel like when people start diving in and learning about health, it's like to live like people they learn about the diet that he recommends, and it's like it's not about living forever, it's about being able to fully enjoy the time we do have, and that really stuck with me. But next one, highlight number 2 or section 2 is diseases of influence. And what is that? Disease of influence. He has a quote: "Here in America, we are affluent. We eat like feasting kings and queens every day of the week, and it kills us." And what disease of influence is an ailment or disease that begin when a culture starts to eat more and more meat, dairy, refined plant products, usually coming from the accumulation of wealth, which is why he calls it diseases of influence. And those diseases are obesity, diabetes, heart disease, which is the number 1 killer in America, cancers, Alzheimer's, etc. Yeah, and in that one he just breaks down in that section. He breaks down and goes into the different diseases and the causations and the effects of them. So he goes into like heart diseases, he goes into cancers, he goes into like mental and autoimmune diseases, and all those. and their findings from the study. And yeah, and then so section highlight number 3 is good nutrition guide, and this one it starts to go into the more better part of the book that I really liked. It goes in that one. My takeaway was 8 principles of food and health, and I'm gonna give y'all those. So first, nutrition represents the combined activities of countless food substances. The greater whole of food is better than just one part. Number 2, vitamin supplements um, are not a panacea for good health. So just vitamins alone aren't the answer. Number 3, there are virtually no nutrients in animal-based foods that are not better provided by plants. Number 4, genes do not determine disease on their own. The nutrition in the nutrition and lifestyle of a person highly affects the highly affects how what affects your genes. And then number 5, nutrition can substantially control the adverse effects of noxious chemicals. Sorry if I'm spelling that one or saying that one wrong. 6 is the same nutrition that prevents disease in its early stage before diagnosis can also halt or reverse disease in its later stages after diagnosis. And I like to quote in there, the same good nutrition maximizes health at every stage of disease. So, yeah. Number 7 is nutrition that is truly beneficial for one chronic disease will support health across the board. So if it prevents one or cures one, then it's good for another one. And I really like that. He goes into why and how. And then number 8, good nutrition creates health in all areas of our existence. All parts are interconnected. And then in that section too, he has like just a little chapter in there. It's called How to Eat. And I really like that one because someone not necessarily knowing with the diet or with like the lifestyle and like way to eat that he presents, I was like, I've heard this before, but I was like, all right, how do you actually go about this? What foods are in there? And he actually presents a table, and it's like the whole chapter is dedicated, on how to go about eating and what to eat in all categories. So like fruits, vegetables, protein substitutes, how to replace like milks that you may be used to, all the from the whole nine. He goes and provides a table that has all that. And then last highlight is why haven't you heard this before? And for many of us, especially today, because this book was published in 2004, but I mean, especially today, I'm sure more people have heard of it. But this section is why haven't you heard of this before? And he has a quote in there that says, most, but not all of the confusion about nutrition is created in legal, fully disclosed ways and is disseminated by unsuspecting, well-intentioned people, whether they're researchers, politicians, or journalists. And he just goes in that whole section of the book and just breaks down each sector of the industries, on how they're interconnected, how they protect their what he calls, their golden prize, which is profit. And he says most of the industries like the science, it's profits over health, it's protection over truth. So yeah, he goes into each one. And I like it because he's actually been he's a part of the World Cancer Research Fund. He's a part of many of these things, so he knows. He's like an insider, giving the outsiders, the story in the end on what's going on. So yeah, that is the China study. That's my highlights of this book. So much more. It's so much information in this book, and I hope my highlights and what you kind of took away from my thoughts on the book lead you to reading the book. There is a documentary on it, so if you don't want to bust the book open, you can watch the documentary. I believe it's on YouTube. I know for sure, I want to say for sure there's an actual website for it. Colin Campbell has his own website that I believe is on there. So it's many places. If you don't want to read the book, there's also audio book to it. Yeah, so many places to get it. I would just highly recommend just tapping in and finding out everything he brings up in this book. And I'd love to talk to you about it, like talk to people about it. Yeah. So yeah, that's The China Study by T. Colin Campbell and Thomas Campbell. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I hope y'all staying safe, staying clean, staying healthy, and again, reclaiming whatever it is at this time that you may have lost, or that you may be confused or frustrated about, because right now is a great time to just refresh and recalibrate. Whether you need to just take a whole 2 days and just sit there. So yeah, I love y'all. Y'all continue to be great, continue to work, continue to win, and worship the good Lord. If you don't believe in that, all love to you. Thank whoever continues to push you day to day. Y'all go ahead and be great. Love y'all.